Welcome to another edition of Clutching Our Pearls. Today we are very intrigued to have Mark Herschberg on our show. He is an expert when it comes to really understanding the essential skills that are needed for success. He is the author of the Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You. This is a lesson that I learned very early in life, and I paid for my sales training before I paid for college because I knew that I was not going to learn how to represent myself well going to community college. But Mark went to MIT, spent his career launching and fixing new ventures in startups, Fortune 500s, and academia. He's developed new software languages, online marketplaces, new authentication systems, so you can thank him for all of the two-factor auths, and tracked criminals and terrorists on the dark web. Mark, I will tell you that I used the dark web to purchase my lipstick, which they discontinued, because I'm pretty sure that's what the dark web is for, right?
It's for a lot of things, and that's one of them.
My apologies, please do not tell the president. Mark also helped create the Undergraduate Practice Opportunities Program, MIT's Career Success Accelerator, where he's taught for 20 years. He also serves on the boards of nonprofits Techie Youth and Plant a Million Corals. Mark, I think we're going to have some fun.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So I want to start in like the most sensitive place possible. We've had millions of people that thought they had a plan, that thought they knew where they were going, and put in 20 years or more, only to be told that they were disposable, that somebody else could easily do their job. Please go home and take care of your kids. As you wrote the Career Toolkit, and with the tremendous years of experience that you have, what are you seeing show up now that people have been through this kind of shake of identity crisis?
We're recording this now after a lot of things have happened, right? From the Great Recession 10 some years ago, where people were told, thank you for your service, here's the door. And not necessarily even because the companies were being jerks, although we've seen that over the years, but because the companies were going out of business. We're coming now through the Great Resignation. We just are on the tail end of the COVID pandemic, moving to the COVID endemic. And so we're seeing lots of people saying, wait a second, what do I want? And is this job giving it to me? So we're seeing lots of changes, lots of questions. And I think this is a good thing because we, from the employee's perspective, are asking, what do we want in our careers as opposed to just jumping from job to job and paycheck to paycheck? And companies, now we, the hiring people, are starting to question, hey, what do we need to offer? Because if it's just a paycheck, that's not enough to attract and retain employees.
Especially if it's a mediocre or low paycheck, and that's the only compensation.
So as you are talking to people about what their next steps might be, how do you help them identify what is right for them, where they can find themselves, and what's most important to their happiness? Because we can all say, hey, as long as I've got lots and lots of cash, everything's going to be great. But that's not always the answer.
It begins by asking yourself, where are you trying to go? And so these are big questions. These are questions like, where do I want to live? What type of work-life balance do I want? What type of challenges do I want in the role? How important is money to me? Right? These are big questions, not about any specific job, but about overarching questions, not just on our career even, but our life. And so I begin by posing about 20 or so questions. These are in chapter 1 of the book, but they're also available for free on the website, on the careertoolkitbook.com. So you can just go look at them right on the website and start trying to answer these questions. Now, the trick with these questions is you need to try to answer them not just for today, but also 5 and 15 years down the road, right? Because your answers today, if you're 25, you might think, oh, I want to travel a lot. I want a job that puts me on a plane every week. That sounds exciting. But at 45, you're saying, I want to be home with my family. So you want to think about these questions both today and in the future. And I realize that's a lot. You might not be able to answer them all today, let alone in the future, but even starting to think about them helps you go in the right direction. You never set out on a road trip without having some sense of destination in mind. The same is true for your career.
Yeah, and I love, so I'm a big planner and goal person, and some of the questions that you're posing in here it's not just for people that are seasoned in their career. It's for those that are just entering a career or are at mid-level. And some of the questions that I really like are, you go through lifestyle options and personal needs, but then you also look at the external impact. How much community impact should my job include? Are there any ethical or moral considerations? And I think we're seeing that come through more and more. And people are leaving companies that don't do what they say they're going to do and don't stand up for the values that they say that they have. Once you know what kind of impact you want to make, how do you make sure that the companies that you're looking at or the opportunities that you're looking at support those?
You can potentially get in a couple different ways. Some might be just the CSR of the company, right? The corporate social responsibility. Does the company itself commit to certain values? Do they give back in meaningful ways? Does the company engage in things that align to your values? Do they say, hey, we're moving towards more recyclable products, or we're trying to be more energy efficient? We are trying to increase the diversity in our company. Whatever values you hold, does the company itself hold that, either internally, or do they act on that in terms of their engagement with the community or the customers or suppliers? So these are different things you might want to check out during the interview process or during your job selection process. It could also be, for some companies, they say, oh, we don't do a lot ourselves, especially smaller companies. Where they say, look, we're 30 people. We don't have a CSR department, but we want to encourage and support you to do this. And you might say, you know what, I'm a Cub Scout den mother, for example. And so I need Tuesday afternoons at 4, I need to be home to go help the kids. The company says, okay, yeah, we get it, and we want to support that. That could be sufficient for meeting your needs. So understand your needs and talk to the company about it.
For me, that kind of brings up, you gave me some feels, Mark, because what we saw frequently during the pandemic and the feminine recession and the diversity recession is that these companies said that they had these values, and that this, it always kills me when a employer says, well, we're family oriented. But when a woman goes to take care of her sick child, she starts to become a liability and not doing her job. But when a man goes to take care of his sick child, he gets hero status. And we've seen people mommy tracked. We've seen people pushed out because of physical diversities and neural diversities because they don't function the same way that others do. How do you find a litmus test for the bullshit that is there when you know that they need to sell you on this job?
Great question. I remember when the company that put Fearless Girl out on Wall Street, I can't remember which company it was. We had the Charging Bull on Wall Street, been there for years, and they hired an artist and put Fearless Girl to say women on Wall Street, right? Great symbol.
Gosh, but when they did that, it was gorgeous and shocking, and I couldn't believe how effective that statue was.
But here's the thing. When I looked up that company, I looked at their executive team. I looked at their board of directors. They were just slightly below average for the number of women on a board or in executive roles on Wall Street. That's great that they put the statue there, but they were not practicing what they were preaching.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly your point. We see people who talk the talk, they say it or they do something symbolic, but when you look at their actual actions, the number of women they had, at least at that level, I couldn't see down to their mid-level. It wasn't easy to get that data. They were not walking the walk. So here's the thing. When we interview as a candidate, when you say, oh, I'm really good at X, the company doesn't say, oh, okay, well, he says he's good at X. Great. They say, well, show me, right? Explain, what have you done with X? Give me an example of a project. Show, don't tell. And we have to do the same thing. Oh, you're very family friendly? Show, don't tell. What specifically is your policy? Or give me an example of a person like me who needed maybe a little extra time, right? It was a difficult pregnancy and birth, and you might only have 4 weeks. But in this case, you said, oh, look, we know you've had some extra challenges. So we were fine giving her 6 weeks. Look for actual stories and examples, just like the company wants from you.
Is there a place for her to pump when she gets back to work?
Exactly.
That is not a bathroom stall.
Right.
So, Mark, I find the work that you do, first, just completely fascinating. But in your years at MIT, you've got to have seen just a tremendous amount, right? There's no way that you haven't watched the trends. What has been most shocking to you about what's happened in the past 2 years?
I am actually really surprised that employees are gaining this much power. I would not have expected or predicted that. The last time we've seen employees with this much power goes back to some of the labor movements back in the early 20th century. Mm-hmm. And for a number of reasons relating to the decreasing strength of the union, larger labor population, more diversity of job opportunities, it just didn't seem labor was as strong, and so wouldn't be able to push back as much as it seems to be doing now. Now, here's the thing we have to remember. The moment the economy goes into recession, we're going to see it reversed. I'm not saying we're going to be in a recession in 6 months. I don't know. It could be 6 months, could be 6 years. But remember, at that point, we've seen this time and again, then employers start to say, hey, we are going to raise the bar. Suddenly, we do want to see you have to have 2 master's degrees to be a receptionist because, well, they can't. So recognize this won't last forever. And there's a question about what gains need to be made and how. Is it just, oh, I want more money, okay, or I want a job where, hey, I can do more CSR or something else? Or will they be more institutionalized? Because when we go back to the labor movement of the early 20th century, we institutionalized things like a 40-hour work week, office safety protocols, right? We started to make those regulatory. So even when a recession came, it wasn't so easy to roll back the rules. So there are the individual gains we make, but then there's a codified gains. And so it's yet to be seen, do these get codified or not? And I'll know I'm saying codified, but there are some almost informal codified things. Let's take dress code, right? It used to be you had to dress up. And Susie, you were mentioning an example earlier. I had a friend who he would talk about, he worked on Wall Street. He had to wear a suit every day as he crawled on his hands and knees to rewire things, right? And ruined lots of suits.
Yeah, I was pulling cable while wearing heels and pantyhose. It was stupid.
So we've now, most industries have said, you know what? We don't care how you dress, right? Tech led the way where we said, we don't care. And then for everyone to compete with tech, they had to say, okay, well, we can't care that much either. And even though there's no regulation of that, we have shifted the standard. So, but we need to see, will these be true shifts, whether encoded culturally or legally, or is it just a temporary swing that's going to swing back at the next recession?
Hopefully, I mean, I think it's going to be both. I think the norm is going to shift, but also part of it is going to, ebb and flow as we move forward. Can I ask you a question about? Oh wait, I can because this is our podcast. I just remembered. So a lot of people grow up with this is what work is going to look like script. And I think the younger generations have wised up to the script that they have, and are actively disrupting it. But how does let's say I was fed a line of how my life is going to go from family and culture and society, and how can your book help me like expand my worldview, see my options differently? And because there's a lot of people in jobs that are not rewarding to them.
Absolutely. And it begins with chapter 1, creating and executing a career plan. That plan doesn't have to be, I go from one company to another. It could be along your career plan. You say, I want to be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur. For myself, I even decided at certain points, hey, I want to be a consultant. Right? I don't think of it as true solopreneur business, but it's just, you know what, instead of working for companies, I want to do some other things. I didn't intend to write this book. In fact, I kind of fell into the teaching at MIT, which I was just helping them create the class in the first place. And then they invited me to teach, and I had been teaching, and I turned that into a book. This was not part of my plan, but along the way, because our plans are not static, we want to revise and update them as we see new options and capabilities in ourselves. So I said, you know what? There's an opportunity here to create a book. And I went forward and did that. So we can find these more zigzaggy paths instead of I'm going to just start out here and climb until I get to the highest rung I can on the ladder. And that all comes by asking these questions and saying, not just, well, what's the next job on this path that someone has laid out for me, but what is a path I want to set for myself, and let me find the steps along the way. And then some of the other tools, for example, there's a chapter on networking. By creating a diverse network, we can increase the opportunities that are brought to us, not just in our field, in different fields in different ways that can lead us to all sorts of potential futures that we might not have planned for initially or even known about.
And I absolutely love that. So both Susie and I are former networking organization executive directors. And we watched people network well and network poorly. Anybody that walks in and says, I'd like to meet
both.
anyone within, we're done. But what I've noticed, Mark, is towards the beginning of the pandemic, before we really knew what was going on, I kind of had this paradigm shift where I was just done with the inauthenticity that people show up to networking events with, right? The mask that says, everything's perfect. I have a great business and no problems. Thanks. Like, I was just done. I actually said to somebody, I've known you for 12 years. If you can't look at me and give me a real answer, we're probably not good networking partners anymore. And just cut it right to the bone, because the people that I've found that are really worth it will tell you when you're doing something stupid, will reach out and share their challenges. And, I'll tell you flat out, when my partner, life partner, passed 7 months after we opened our family business, it was my network that picked me up and kept me going. How do you build the kind of network that sees you as more than just a source of referrals, but sees you as a partner and a person and a worthy counterpoint in their life that helps it move forward?
It is having the right mindset towards networking. And we unfortunately have this terrible view of networking because it comes from that stereotypical view of the often sleazy sales guy who walks into some conference and 20 minutes later comes back with 10 business cards. So look at all these cards and go, wow, boy, I wish I could do that. 10 business cards. But here's the thing. Let's think about the following analogy, because now we're doing lots of networking online. Like, oh, I've got all these LinkedIn contacts, right? I've had all these people. Look at how many connections I have on LinkedIn. But consider another type of online connections. Let's take online dating. Let's take Tinder. If you swipe right on someone, does that mean she's your girlfriend? Look, I swiped right. were practically married, right? That would be insane. If you said it to a friend, they'd laugh at you or maybe even get you help. And yet with networking, we say, oh, look, I just connected to this person on LinkedIn. Now we have this great relationship. No, just like on these
We
online
acknowledge
dating,
each other's presence.
just like with online dating apps, once you swipe right, what do you have to do? You have to build the relationship. Now you would do that with dating. When you get someone's business card or you connect on LinkedIn, you have to build the relationship. It might not be going on dates, but it is getting to know the person and building it up over time. And
So we actually call that professional dating because we talk about professional love. And you and I actually had this conversation right when we started of like, what's the first date? What's the first easy thing that you can do to connect with that person that is low impact, that is going to give them a way in to start to see who you are? And if we can think about it in that dating context of, all right, let's do a little get to know you and see if there's chemistry here, because don't have people in your network that you don't like, because that sucks. 2, the next date is a deeper conversation where you can talk about what your values are and what your goals are and see if there is greater alignment. And what I gotta say, one of my favorite speakers that I ever had at eWomen Network talked about the power of building relationships by allowing others to help you, because it allows them to give, and it is sometimes hard to receive, especially when we're struggling or we don't want people to know that there's a vulnerability there. But having those deeper conversations and getting feedback and then doing something with it really does build a deeper emotional connection. And it's the emotional connection that matters, not the business card.
well, let's even continue the dating analogy. No one wants to go into a relationship dating where you say, oh, what can I get from the other person? Right? I want someone, she's going to be great at cooking and cleaning and taking care of.
She's on Tinder. She ain't cooking and cleaning and doing other stuff.
Or, oh, she's going to be great for, like, she earns a lot of money. Great, good. I want a rich wife, right? Whatever. You don't think, ooh, I want this. Now, there are qualities we like. I want someone with integrity. I want someone who's intelligent. But you don't, if you go in thinking, well, I want this, I want some need fulfilled, I want to take, that's not a great way to start a relationship. But if you go in,
we call red flags in dating.
Right. The people we want to date are ones who are giving, right? Ones who say, hey, oh, you know what? You're having a busy day. I'm going to go pick up your dry cleaning because I can just be nice, right? Whatever the love languages are, right? We can go down a whole thing on that. That's not really relevant to this, but it's about giving and supporting in ways the other person wants. The same is true for our professional relationships. I go in thinking, how can I give? What can I offer? So everyone I meet, everyone has a need. Now, you point out some people aren't going to share their need. Oh, everything is great. Sales are through the roof and everything is perfect. In fact, I remember one guy who was telling me how he's making so much money, so successful, nearly made another $1 million in some investments and everything's great with his business. Then asked me to consult. 5 minutes later in the conversation, asked me to consult. I said, well, I don't have a lot of money to pay you, right? He didn't want to admit he had any challenges. But right. I always go in, what do you need? What can I do to help? That doesn't mean I'm going to move mountains for you because we just met. But if there's little things I can do to help, you start small and you build up that trust in that relationship over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've dated. I'm a U-Haul kind of girl, unfortunately.
Well, and in sales class, I talk a lot about setting yourself up for success in networking. And part of that is setting agenda and intentions as to what the next steps are. How can we be of service? And we have a system where we actively court our top strategic partners. And we spend more time and money building those relationships than we do on marketing campaigns, because we know those are the folks that are going to refer good business. They're going to make good connections. and we can be of service to them as well. And lifting as we climb is what it's all about. So you are in the middle of getting the Career Toolkit book out, and there's also an incredible app that I want to make sure that you guys check out. It's free. We'll make sure that the links are in the notes, and then the book itself. Listen, no matter, you can have an MBA, and unless you also went out and got your MBA on the streets and learned how to be a good business person, you're missing a whole tool set, and you need to find a place to orient. The Career Toolkit is a great place to do that. You've been promoting this book and teaching and putting yourself out there for 20 years. What would people be surprised to know about you?
I was a former championship level ballroom dancer. Throughout my 20s, I used to compete and go all over the country. I went to national championships multiple times. A great period in my life. And so that's not what you would normally think for a guy who's a hardcore MIT nerd as a CTO and now teaches professional development skills as well.
I love classic or Latin. What? Tell me more things.
In ballroom, there are 4 styles of dance: international standard, international Latin, American smooth, American rhythm. I did all 4. I said, if I'm going to get on a plane, if I'm going to spend a weekend somewhere, I want to spend as much time on the floor as possible. And in fact, the fundamentals really apply to all. The technique might be different, but I could even transpose. In fact, one of my foxtrot routines had some samba moves in it. Obviously, we executed them differently, but that's always been a philosophy of mine. And in fact, we even see that a little in the book. And it's the reason I put all these different skills in the book, because good leaders know how to negotiate and good negotiators know how to communicate. And all these skills help you get stronger in the other categories. Getting better at my Latin did help my standard and vice versa.
Wow. Yeah.
So, Mark, I'll tell you the thing that very few people know about me is that in Las Vegas, at the Sahara, before they blew it up in 1996, I did a professional belly dancing and ballroom routine where we mixed adagio with belly dancing. And for those that don't know adagio, it's the big lifts and tosses and, balancing on your navel on somebody's shoulder and holding yourself up with like the tiny muscles in your back. And there is something about dance that teaches you how to be in tune with not only the space around you, but with the energy of another person. And I loved that part about ballroom. And I learned ballroom by going to the swing concerts in Vegas and letting the little old men teach me how to dance when I was like 12 and 13. Like I loved it. If this life is a dance, and we just got done with, I don't know, some old ass Tootsie Roll, Running Man, Kid in Play, insanity dumpster fire for the past 2 years.
We're going to put translations for younger generations in the show notes.
Yeah, we will. It'll be okay, kids. How are we going to dance our way back to knowing ourselves and feeling like we're part of this society again?
I'm going to throw in another old school reference. It all begins with wax on, wax off. Focus on the fundamentals. Focus on the base skills, because as you build that up, you're going to develop the understanding and the ability to see where things are going and to see where the opportunities are, and then to have the tools to best capitalize on them.
That was beautifully done. I'm sure not many people ask you that particular question. I do want to make sure that everybody knows how to find you. There are so many free resources on your website. There's the free app. There's the book that I'm so glad somebody wrote this book, Mark, and I'm kind of happy it's you and not just some schmuck, because we've got a lot to learn as we move forward, and a lot of it can't come from a college curriculum. Thank you for putting some reality out into the world. And I would like to give you the opportunity to give one last insight to those that have been out of work, don't know who they are anymore, and are trying to get back to life.
This is a tough situation to be in because you're struggling in a difficult, challenging spot, and doing it alone just makes it harder. So the best thing you can do is create a peer group. Get other people in your community. They could be friends, could be other people. You can start a local meetup group, and you want people who are going through this with you and who can support you. Now, there might even be some people who have jobs, but they're there to support you because they've been there and they know they'll be there again. And when that happens, they want you to support them. So create these groups, get together on a regular basis, and do two things. First, create ways where you can share leads, share job hunt strategies, share just support tips for each other. So you're not doing it alone and you can learn from each other. Better than even just showing up once a week or twice a month, you want to actually bring in content, bring in local speakers, bring in local people who can help elevate all of you and upskill you and teach you techniques. It might be people who are recruiters who can help in this area, or financial planners who can talk about strategies you can use while you're between jobs. There's lots of people with content out there willing to share it with this community you create. And by the way, if you're the one who creates a community, that greatly enhances your visibility and your network, and it's going to help you get to success that much faster.
An important example of your leadership skills, and it showcases you in a great way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I have one more question. Do you want to tell us anything about Techie Youth or the nonprofit work you do?
One of the nonprofits I work with is Techie Youth. The website, techieyouth.org, TECHIEYOUTH.org. We began by focusing on helping foster kids and at-risk youth in the New York City area, helping them to develop skills that are going to put them onto a career path. With COVID, we had to go virtual. We couldn't hold our classrooms. And so we now have online resources. This is available to anyone because we don't check, are you in the New York City system? Are you in foster care? If you sign up, you have the content available to you. And it's gone beyond pure technical skills. We used to teach things like how to set up user accounts and help people when they couldn't print, very technical skills. But we've expanded beyond that, how you can use social media and other skills to develop techniques that can help you land a new career and put you on the path to earning income and being self-sufficient. So that content is available for anyone who wants to sign up for it.
My gosh, that's so important. I'm getting more involved in some of the queer youth foster issues and aging out of the system. And I have to say that I'm so very grateful for people like you trying to extend opportunities, extend mentorship and tools, and make sure that these people are absolutely integrated and energized by society and accepted and supported. It's so important.
By investing in helping the next generation, our youth who don't always have a great support system, by investing in them and helping get them on a better track, it helps not only them, but helps society as a whole. And this is
everybody.
Much needed solution that I really hope expands and can help a lot more people.
Thank you very much. Please make sure to follow Mark. Here's his social media handles one more time. He puts out really tremendous content. Don't forget to follow us at Forward Revolution as well. We have some really exciting projects coming up, and we are here to help you level up in your career. If you need to reskill, upskill, identify a path, we're here to support you mentally, socially, and from an education point of view. You have more resources than you could possibly know, and we are blessed to be part of the journey.